video is sponsored by Squarespace.
It's August on the farm and there's abundance everywhere. This spring was a very bad spring on the farm. It was super cold and a lot of stuff got planted way later than it should have, dangerously late. And so I was really worried about what August was gonna look like. I was worried about if I'd even be able to make bouquets, to have flowers, but it turned out I didn't need to worry because August always has so much. The sunflowers are the things that really saved me. The variety of sunflowers that we grow are pro cuts. And the one thing that I love about pro cuts, other than just like how beautiful and perfect they are, is that they take about 60 days from seed to bloom. So that means that when you're like, oh no, I didn't plant my 100-day to bloom plants soon enough, you can put in those 60-day ones and you'll get them 40 days before all the other stuff. So they are really saving my butt. And I mean, they look amazing. Every 2 weeks we had been putting in a couple beds, and so the section that I'm standing in now is our first planting. Our second planting is also blooming out. We have so many that, you know, we're able to just leave some in the field and not have to worry. And we have them still coming, right? So all, you know, it's mid-August now, all of August. So far I've had these and I'm going to have these sunflowers until the end of season. And if all I can do is put together sunflower bunches, they'll still sell. So much gratitude. Thank you, sunflowers. Thank you so much. You look great and you're so easy to grow. But let's get out of here because there's a million bees and I've already been stung. That 100-day crop that wasn't in time, that wasn't just a general example, that was a specific example. Like these zinnias here, you can see these are very small. They are not going to be blooming anytime soon. They need still a bunch more days before I'm gonna be able to be cutting off of these. This is very frustrating for me. I decided this year I was gonna plant zinnias direct seed, put them straight into the ground. They grow so well, they grow so easily. I figured, oh, this'll be fine. And we had pest pressure that made it so all of the seedlings, they all came up nicely, and then the bugs came in and they ate them all when they were just the tiny little seedlings. And so I did it twice. I planted, they came up, they got killed 2 weeks later, I direct seeded again, they came up, nothing happened, and I was like, okay, oh no. So I then planted a bunch of trays and grew out seedlings, so these haven't been in ground for very long. We're also dealing with some other bug or rodent type issue that we've never dealt with before, which is coming in and it's chewing the base of the stems on a lot of our seedlings when we did put them in, which is then causing the plants to fall over, like this one, right? So this got chewed, it fell over. The problem with this is, you know, the plant's still alive, the plant's still happy, but because now all the growth is coming from so low, you know, I need stem length, right? So this, it's going to be a little bit longer before I get stems that are long enough on the upright ones. So the fact that the seedlings got in so late and then this happened, this actually stunted them again, which means that, you know, we're not really gonna have zinnias available until September. But honestly, that's fine. Every year I get zinnias, you know, I'm always trying to get them as early as possible, and it is really fun to have them all summer. Zinnias are gorgeous, but what happens is I don't do succession plantings. And so then in the fall, when I really could use some good flowers, you know, the zinnias just don't look as nice. They're not as abundant. This zinnia planting being late, starting in September, means I'll be able to get a good 6 weeks of beautiful flowers off of them. And you know, that's gonna take me to the end of the season. With those sunflowers, you know, I have a great focal, and there's so much in the summer. I don't really need them, especially because of the crop that I have over here. My Lanthus is another one of my crops that really got messed up this year. So these Lanthus didn't get planted out in time, which is why they're very small and not, you know, not looking big and beautiful like they should be. But they're still blooming and they're still available. Lanthus is a crop that doesn't bloom based on how long it's been in the ground. It blooms based on like the time of year, the sunlight, and all those. So you want to grow it as big as possible in those early days because they're gonna bloom in August no matter what, right? So because these didn't get planted early enough to get big, they're blooming small. We're still gonna be able to sell them, so I'm not too worried. And these, you know, this Lanthus patch here will bloom across the course of all of August. So this will kind of finish off into the beginning of September. And so it's gonna time really nicely with my messed up zinnias, right? As this finishes off, I'll have the zinnias coming in as a new crop. You know, I'll still have the sunflowers available. But you know, even though I messed it up, it's really gonna save my butt this year. Another crop that didn't get into the ground in the correct timing, so I don't have any flowers on it available now, but I will have them come September, is my marigolds. So they're starting to bloom. The first little blooms are coming up, but these first blooms are like, I can't pick them for any sort of usable stem. These marigolds are Cocoa is the variety, and I have it in all three of the colors. And they're amazing because they send up so many side stems. But these, you know, they're still quite short at this point. Like, I'm sitting down to be able to show you them. By the time, you know, they're full on, like, it's very much, they're like to my shoulders in height. But in this, I don't know if you guys can see, but there's all these side branches. If I tried to pick this with a long enough stem to use it in a bouquet, I'd be cutting off like almost the entire plant. I'm better off to come in and like pinch it off, you know, just get rid of these first few flowers so that the side stems can get sent up. I don't pinch them at this point because in past years, I've actually been able to get a usable first cut stem on it. And so if you can just cut a flower instead of pinching stems, you know, it takes as much time, but then you get something to sell instead. This year, because I planted them so late, they're blooming a little bit shorter. So, you know, no piece of knowledge for the future, right? Plant them early, you can get a usable center stem. Plant them late, it's probably a good idea to give them a pinch. Yellow is always the first one to bloom in the Cocoa series. I find that it usually is yellow blooms the fastest, and then orange comes on, and then gold. But orange and gold bloom in a pretty similar timing. And so this behind me is where we have the orange and gold, and you can see not quite as much color. We also have another orange variety, which I really like, called Zoshi, and it's mixed in somewhere. I just planted them by color this year. These are a lot shorter than the other variety because this is a spot where we especially struggled with that pest issue, chewing the stem and having the stems fall. So a lot of these are short because they're laying on their sides, right? So instead of having that tall center stem, they're laying on their sides and their center stem's over here. These laying down is gonna be okay for me because it means that those like side stems, which you know, I'm gonna be picking off of them in the future, are already kind of like sending up, they've straightened up. So this kind of just means I won't have to do as much work for giving that pinch of the top flower. But it's still, you know, I'm not gonna be getting usable stems out of marigolds until September, which is fine because, like, honestly, marigolds are the perfect fall flower. They're not quite as popular in the summer, so it'll be good. It'll work out perfectly. I love August because everything just explodes in the farm. You know, the flowers go from seeming like, oh, when will these ever bloom, to everything blooms at once. But the flip side to that is everything grows abundantly on the farm, including all the weeds. And so this section of the field is a great example for showing what August on the farm looks like, you know, on almost every single farm. Things are growing so fast that it's just really hard to keep on top of the weeds. And when you have weeds like these spiny amaranth, like this is like 2 weeks of growth. These come out of nowhere and just grow really, really fast. So staying on top of it is really challenging at this time of year. At this point, you know, we have the black fabric, which, you know, we've talked about in the past. I'll link one of the videos where, you know, we talk about like why we use it and how we use it. But it does a fairly good job of keeping some of the weeds down, but you still have to weed in here, right? They still pop up in the holes. But then you have the sections where it's just open and growing, and this is getting water because we're watering the areas of the farm right beside it. So it's just kind of the perfect conditions for weeds to grow. How we are dealing with this year and how we've kind of dealt with it sometimes in the past is when it starts to get out of control, we'll come in with the tiller and we'll just till it in. So today we're going to be doing another planting of sunflowers. Like I said, every 2 weeks we're putting sunflower seeds into the ground. But the first step is that we need to get rid of these weeds. Today, a till is going to happen before these seeds go in, and it'll reset this. Then we'll have another 2 weeks until the amaranth take over. But luckily, sunflowers grow, you know, as fast or faster than the amaranth. Down at the very bottom of the farm, you can see the fence behind me. There's been some exciting stuff that's been going on that haven't shared yet. So come see all the secrets back here. Down here we have, I don't know, can't remember, over 1,000 delphiniums planted. They got in quite late, so they're not really doing anything. These ones here are a little bit bigger, so you know, you can start to see something. These aren't going to give any flowers this year. I don't even think that they'll give a fall flush. We would have gotten them in on time, you know, we probably would have. But these will overwinter, and then next year there should be some really beautiful flowers down here. And because it's kind of out of the way, you know, it's kind of just, they can do their thing, they can hang out. And then we also have some other plantings on the other side. In here, these 2 beds, there's over 1,000 of sedum. So they, you know, they're doing their thing. Sedums in the first year, they send up this single stem. You know, it's not really anything that can get cut, but by next year it'll have like a clump of stems, and these are just amazing as a cut flower. They last forever in the vase. By like day 10 they will have rooted, and so you can just keep them in water for the next 10 years if you really wanted. And so you can pick them at this stage when they're like a green filler, and they kind of start to be at this stage by June, right? It's really early that you can start harvesting on them. And then come September, they will bloom, and they have like a pinkish bloom. I planted Autumn Fire and Autumn Joy in here. They both get pretty good height. You know, what they look like here this year isn't a good representation of, you know, what they look like as a mature plant. They kind of get about that tall, so you can get really good stem length on them. And yeah, they're just an amazing filler that takes so little labor, that it's, you know, I think it's a great option for anyone who has low water, right? We're dry, deserty here. If you have wet conditions, these aren't going to be super happy. They are succulent, so they kind of rot out if they get too much water. Behind me is the peony patch, and this is another great example of just how crazy weeds are. This whole thing got weeded very, very thoroughly about 3 weeks ago, and now there's weeds everywhere. With the peony patch for maintenance, so you harvest them in the spring, but you want to keep them weeded. You want to keep them fertilized so that the plants are as healthy and happy as the year goes on, so they produce even more flowers for you the next spring. So we've given this, after the last time after we weeded it, we gave it a really good fertilize, you know, get some strength into those leaves for the winter dormancy. But yeah, maintenance, once a month we need to weed it, keep it doing its thing. And then the other thing we need to do is in the fall we need to cut all the leaves and take them off the property. So, you know, peonies, gorgeous and beautiful, but they are maintenance even when, you know, you're not taking advantage of their blooms. Behind me is another crop that got planted pretty late, so there's not gonna really be anything harvestable off of it until September. This is straw flowers. So there are some blooms, but I mean, you can see how short the plant is. So that first kind of pick is just, it's a pinch. They're not tall enough to get a usable stem. Last year we grew straw flowers only for the flowers. We got the plants in super early. We had 3 full beds and we just came and we picked off the flowers. We never picked it for any sort of stem because we were growing them just to use for dried flower crafts. And that was amazing. I now have a lifetime supply of straw flowers away in storage. They store really, really well. They dry really well, so they were great. But this planting is for stems this year. So, you know, after I do a pinch here in the next week, you know, they're gonna grow, and then September and October, I'm gonna have these nice little secondary flowers to add into the bouquets. I think they're gonna look really nice. Marigolds, zinnias, straw flower, maybe some sunflowers still. You know, the fall bouquets are gonna be really gorgeous. Another flower, I have it's a little weedy over on the other side, but I have a bunch of this, and I wanna talk about this a little bit because it's something that I think everyone should grow, and that it'd be easy to put in every single bouquet, kind of like the sedum. So this is a Mobia, or winged everlasting, and it does this tiny little white straw flower. You can pick it before they open so they don't have the yellow centers, but it gets quite large and it grows really similar to a statice. So this is just, it's great, right? When it dries, it looks the same as when it's fresh. So its vase life is super, super long. And it's a really just simple filler. A single stem of this kind of gives that perfect little bit of sparkle that really adds some like elegance and sophistication to like a simple market bouquet, but it grows, you know, as easy as anything else. So this is something that I think, like, you know, if you can, you should grow this. I was out of seed on this year. I couldn't find seed for it anywhere, and I was stressed out. I was like, no, I need a Mobium every year. Like, no, I need this. And so I went into my dried flower collection and actually found a few brownish flowers on the dried flowers, picked them off, like turned them into dust and seeded that, and got a million seeds popping up. So it is the type of thing that's like really easy to collect seeds on it too. You kind of, if you grow this once and you let one plant kind of mature, you'll have a lifetime supply of it. So, you know, this is highly recommended, you know, and I like, it's pretty. I'd grow this in like a home garden even. Like, I really, really like this plant. Amobium is my favorite, but, you know, sharing the podium in silver is the status. I love the status. I love the look of it. I love how long it lasts. I love the sound it makes. This is just such a great flower for in the market bouquets. And so I'm finally into status season. This also got in late. Theme of this year, everything got in late. But despite getting in late, because status really likes to get established in the cool weather. So getting this in early does lead to better plants. But even though that didn't happen, we're finally getting some good stem length on it. These ones, not quite. But so what happens with the status is the first couple blooms are quite short, right? Like this is a good example. And then as they go on, as you can see here, they start getting better stem length. The problem is they just grow crazy, right? Like when they're short like this, I'm kind of like, I'm not going to use them in the bouquet. So I don't get to picking it as quickly as I should. And then we have the problem of having 2 full beds of status, and each of these status plants have like 6 stems that have to get picked. And then there's so many stems in here that it's like a tangled knot mess. And so the job that I have this week, which I've actually been working on for 2 weeks now, this is like the never-ending job when you have this much status, when you have 1,000 plants, is getting it picked. Once I get this first flush picked out, it then starts to be like, you know, it's steadily, each plant will produce a stem a week, so then it's only 1,000 stems to pick out of my 1,000 plant patch. But yeah, getting that first 6,000 stems out of here can be a little overwhelming, but I love it, so that makes up for it. I've been growing the status for a few years now, and I really like the blue. I don't think this is blue, I think this is purple. I really like the dark blue. It gets really good, strong stem length. But one really consistent performer has been this rose color. The stems are always a lot taller than the other colors, and it produces like really well. This one actually starts blooming a little bit earlier than the other colors I've found. So, you know, having this much status is a little excessive, and if you're only going to grow a few plants, I always find it easier to grow it in the same color if you're building bouquets out of it. So if I had to cut it down to just like one color, I'd probably go for this rose. It's just really versatile. I pair it with purple stuff, it looks purple. I pair it with pink, it looks pink. It's really usable. But probably the color that's the most popular with the customers and also with the florists is this apricot color. And you can kind of see there can be a whole range of colors that are in this apricot. This is all the same seed. So I can go from this kind of like peachy yellow into kind of these like purpley tones, these antique rose tones. These, they still get really good stem length, but the stems are a little bit spindly. You can kind of see, right? They're bent and they're skinny and they're twisty. But if you look at the stems over here, they're a little bit heavier. They're a little bit more sturdy. This I like to work with in bouquets because they become almost like a cage, because I often put them in at the very end onto the outside of the bouquets, and they'll kind of hold the bouquet together. Whereas this, you know, there's a little bit more movement, a little bit more twisty, which, I mean, makes sense why florists probably like it. You can do some more decorative stuff with it. But yeah, if I was gonna pick 2, this would probably be it. Rose and apricot. Another flower that I absolutely love, saves my butt, like the sunflowers, is cosmos. Cosmos, these we did direct from seed, and they got in too late, theme of the video. But despite that, you know, they're full on. These, I have 3 beds of them in total, and these are gonna save my butt. These will give me flowers until the frost comes and kills everything. The variety that blooms the absolutely earliest is this one here. This is Rubenza, and the color's great, especially in the fall. This I love in the fall because it kind of really brings in that color palette. Another variety that I love for how quickly it grows is this single white variety that I have. It branches really nicely, so I find that it produces really, really well, and it's a little bit easier to stay on top of. Like, you can kind of even see it in this plant, whereas the branches are a little bit more open, whereas over here the Rubenza is kind of like more like a shrub. So this can be a little bit more challenging to pick, and you know, that's one of the things about the cosmos. They can be very overwhelming to keep them picked. They just go and go and go, and like these, they're gonna get massive. Then the final variety that we have this year is Double Click. So this is a big double variety, and we just did the mix. So there's Bonbon, which is this violet color. I forget what this is, but it's, you know, beautiful raspberry. And then the white, which is called Snow Puff when it's sold individually. Some people don't like double click in arrangements because the heads are so heavy. They have so many petals. Sometimes they can kind of weigh down. But the trick that I use for using them if they're not being very supportive is I'll put them into the middle of a bouquet. You know, I'll have a piece of filler, and then I'll put the double click in, and I'll slide, you know, the flowers in so they're kind of supported by some of the filler flowers. And then even though the flowers are heavy, they still do good. And then the nice thing too about these like heavy flowers with heavy petals is if they lose a couple petals, you know, it's not going to be super obvious when they go to market. So you can be a little bit more rough in the handling of these doubles while they still look, you know, pretty much perfect, which I like. Behind me is a bed of Rubia, which I love. Rubia always saves my butt. It always comes to this time when the cool early summer crops have finished off and I don't quite have a lot of bulk. And then Rubia is here with a million flowers, more flowers than I could ever use. So the variety that I grow is Indian Summer. It is the one that I found has the most consistent vase life. Rubia can be kind of picky about what will survive after harvesting it. And Indian Summer is usually like pretty confident when I send it out that it's gonna do good. So it's kind of the only one I want to grow at this point. And you can just pick it and pick it and pick it. It never finishes. At this point, they're getting a little bit older. I still have more than I know what to do with. So what I do to maintain it, because they really are great in the fall too, is I will go in and I'll take about half of my Rubia plantings and I'll just cut them off, like down near the bottom of the plant. Basically, I'll get like a hedge trimmer and I'll deadhead like an entire row of them, cut them down to just the greens, you know, about a foot off the ground. And then it'll take about 4 weeks, maybe even 6 weeks for them to grow back up and bloom again. But the flowers that bloom at that point will be really strong, really beautiful, and you won't have to deal with, you know, some flowers that still look great on the plant for if it was a garden plant, but maybe not perfect enough to be selling. The flowers are great, and you know, they get all the attention, but the real MPV in a flower farm is the filler. And this is probably one of the best fillers ever. If I could use this every week of the year, I would be very, very happy. This is Anise Hup, and it is perfect. It gets these beautiful spikes that have these purple flowers on them. And it gets a really long harvest window. So these flowers are pretty much finished. You can see there's not really very many flowers left on here, but it's still pretty usable at this stage. I've probably already been picking off of this hedge for a month. And I will probably get another week or two out of it before the flowers start to kind of go brown tones, and then I'll stop using it. But I mean, every week I've been picking a couple hundred stems out of here, and you can kind of see it doesn't look like it's been touched at all. This is just a really, really incredible plant. I highly advise it for anyone who's wanting to put together bouquets to give it a try. It's very, very simple to grow, and it's perennial. So it's, you know, here I'm a zone 5, but we don't get a lot of snow. So I find it doesn't consistently survive the winter. Only about 50% of it survives the winter. But because there's so many so many flowers on here, every year flowers get left, which then self-seed and fill in the holes. So the 50% of plants that survive come back nice and strong, and then the 50% that's empty with dead plants in it has self-seeded plants that will start growing as the season comes on. So this is a pretty like zero maintenance bed on the farm at this point. And then my other favorite filler is this bee balm. This I grew from seed. It's just a very, very basic bee balm, and it makes this incredible filler. It's kind of fallen over at this point, and it really is kind of near the end. Like, it's starting to have some brown petals. I prefer to use it when I don't have to pick all those off. But yeah, this just produces so much, and people love the look of this. I was at the market last week selling, and I had so many people come and be like, what is that? It looks so incredible. It really puts a lot of bulk and color and kind of whimsy into the bouquets at this time of year, which helps a lot when it's like Rudbeckian sunflowers and just this. It makes them look quite distinct from some of the other bouquets that are available. So yeah, this bee balm is just incredible.
It's like alive with the bees right now.
I know. This is where I got stung last night, so I'm not going in too deep. But yeah, no, it's humming like a beehive. You can never have enough filler. It really elevates what the bouquets look like. It gives them so much bulk. It gives them, so many extra details. It's really what makes the difference between, professional looking bouquet and an amateur looking bouquet. And so, the bee balm and the Anise Hup, I just love them, but they're perennial. They bloom when they bloom. And so I only get so much of a window out of them. So what I've done this year is I've started a second succession. So this is an entire bed of Anise Hup behind me. It got planted late, but it got planted late on purpose. What I'm really hoping is that this will grow, and come September, it will bloom. And then I'm going to hopefully have another month of Anise Hup to really extend the season. And I've also done the same with some of that bee balm. I'm not as confident that the bee balm will bloom this year, but I love it so much that it's worth a try. Often at this point on the farm, I'm getting tired. The season has been fairly long, August, July. We've had a lot of hot weather. It's easy to feel the long farm days starting to creep up on you. But when things are so abundant and blooming, and it's like everywhere you look, there's just more, it's hard to not still have all that energy. It's hard not to just feel infinitely inspired by the garden and the flowers and the farm every year. I know that, by end of September, the novelty will start to wear off. But at this point, the flowers definitely put a smile on my face, and hopefully it put a smile on your face getting to see them too. Another thing that puts a smile on my face is ways that I can automate my business. And one of the best ways you can do that, if you have any sort of product to sell, is by getting yourself a website. And Squarespace can help you with that. Squarespace is an all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online. Whether you're just starting out or managing a growing brand, Squarespace makes it easy to create a beautiful website, engage with your audience, and sell anything from products to content to time, all in one place, all on your terms. I love how easy they make it for me to build a website. Squarespace Blueprint AI is a guided design system that helps you build your dream website. And Fluid Engine, the next generation website editor, lets you customize every design detail. Whether you're building an online store or offering courses, Squarespace has you and me covered. Go to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/youcan'teatthegrass to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.